Margaret smoothed down her navy blue dress for the third time as she waited at the small corner table in Rosewood Cafe tilde copyright, the same Cafe tilde copyright where she had agreed to meet David for what was supposed to be a simple coffee date. Her hands trembled slightly as she checked her watch again. 7:15. He was already 15 minutes late. The familiar weight of doubt settled in her chest like an old unwelcome friend. At 58, Margaret had learned to expect disappointment, especially when it came to matters of the heart. The waitress approached with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Another coffee, dear?" Margaret nodded gratefully. She had been coming to this Cafe tilde copyright for years. Ever since her divorce was finalized, it had become her sanctuary. A place where she could sit quietly with her thoughts and watch the world go by. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Margaret finally accepted what her heart had been whispering all along. David had taken one look at her through the window and decided she wasn't worth his time. She had been honest in her profile. Perhaps too honest, but she believed in truth, in authenticity, in being exactly who she was. A woman who had raised 3 children, who had loved deeply and lost, who carried the gentle curves that life had given her. As she gathered her purse to leave, she heard a commotion from the table behind her. "I'm sorry, sir, but we cannot accommodate any more complaints about your meal." The voice belonged to James, the Cafe tilde copyright owner, a man in his early 60s with silver hair and kind eyes who had always treated Margaret with warmth. "This is unacceptable," came the sharp reply. "I demand to speak to the manager immediately." Margaret turned slightly and saw a well-dressed man in an expensive suit berating James. The man's voice grew louder and more demanding with each word. Other patrons began to stare. Some looked uncomfortable, others annoyed. Margaret felt her protective instincts rise. She had watched James work tirelessly in this Cafe tilde copyright. He treated every customer like family. He remembered their usual orders, asked about their grandchildren, offered free pastries to anyone having a difficult day. Without thinking, Margaret rose from her seat. "Excuse me." Her voice was steady despite her nervousness. The angry man turned to her with irritation. "This doesn't concern you, madam." "Actually it does." Margaret's voice grew stronger. "James has been serving this community for over 15 years. He knows every regular customer by name. He remembers birthdays and anniversaries. He's helped countless people through difficult times. If you cannot appreciate that kind of genuine care, then perhaps you should find somewhere else to dine." The Cafe tilde copyright fell silent. Margaret could feel every eye in the room on her. The man stared at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. His shoulders relaxed. The anger seemed to drain from his face. "You're absolutely right." He turned to James with genuine remorse. "I apologize. I've had a terrible day and I took it out on you. That was completely inappropriate." James nodded graciously, always the gentleman. The man then turned back to Margaret. "Thank you for that reminder. I needed to hear it." He extended his hand. "I'm William." Margaret. She shook his hand, surprised by the genuine warmth in his grip. "Would you like to join me for coffee?" William asked. "I promise to be better company than I was a moment ago." Margaret hesitated. Her recent experience with David still stung, but something in William's eyes seemed different. Sincere, she found herself nodding. They talked for hours. William was recently widowed after 40 years of marriage. His wife Eleanor had passed 2 years ago and he was still learning how to navigate the world alone. He shared stories of their travels together, their children and grandchildren, the small daily rituals that had made their marriage strong. Margaret found herself opening up in return about her own journey. Her children now grown and scattered across the country. Her work as a retired librarian. Her love of gardening and old movies. Her struggle to find her place in a world that seemed obsessed with youth and perfection. "You know," William said as the evening grew late, "Eleanor used to say that real beauty came from how someone treated others. She was right. What you did tonight, standing up for James, that showed me who you really are." Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had seen her? Really seen her? Not the number on the scale or the lines around her eyes, but the woman she was inside. They began meeting regularly, not dates exactly, but something deeper. Two people who had lived full lives finding comfort in each other's company. William was successful in business, that much was clear from his expensive clothes and luxury car. But he never made Margaret feel small or insignificant. Instead he seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, her opinions, her dreams for the future. One evening as they walked through the park near the cafe copyright William stopped suddenly. "Margaret, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped. Here it comes, she thought. The moment when he realizes he can do better. "I own several restaurants in the city, including a chain you've probably heard of." He named an upscale establishment that Margaret had seen advertised. "I'm what people might call wealthy, but I want you to know that none of that matters to me as much as this." He gestured between them. "As much as the way I feel when I'm with you." Margaret was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want there to be any secrets between us. And because I want you to know that when I look at you I don't see someone who needs fixing or changing. I see someone who has lived a full beautiful life. Someone with wisdom and kindness and strength. Someone I admire." The tears came then, all the years of feeling invisible, of being dismissed, of believing she wasn't enough. They melted away under the warmth of his words. 6 months later William proposed. Not with fanfare or grand gestures, but quietly in the same corner of Rosewood Cafe copyright where they had first truly met. James was there to witness it, beaming with pride as if he had orchestrated the entire romance. Margaret's children flew in for the wedding. Simple and elegant, held in the garden behind the cafe copyright. William's family embraced her completely. His daughter Sarah whispered to her before the ceremony, "Dad hasn't smiled like this since Mom passed. Thank you for bringing joy back to his life." As they exchanged vows, Margaret thought about David, the man who had stood her up all those months ago. She felt no anger anymore, only gratitude. Because his rejection had led her to this moment, to William, to a love that saw her exactly as she was and celebrated it. Their wedding reception was small and intimate. Friends and family gathered around tables decorated with flowers from Margaret's own garden. James provided the catering, of course. As the evening wound down, William took Margaret's hand. "Do you know what I love most about our story?" She shook her head. "That it began with an act of kindness. You defending someone who couldn't defend himself. That's when I knew you were extraordinary." Margaret smiled. At 58 she had discovered that life still held surprises, that love could bloom at any season, that sometimes the most beautiful chapters came after you thought the story was over. She had learned that true worth wasn't measured by a number on a scale or the approval of strangers on dating apps. It was found in moments of kindness, in standing up for what's right, in seeing the good in others and helping them see it in themselves. As she and William danced slowly under the string lights in James's garden surrounded by the people who loved them, Margaret felt complete. Not because a man had chosen her, but because she had chosen herself, had recognized her own value, and in doing so had attracted someone who could see it too. The cafe copyright would always hold a special place in their story. The corner table where Margaret had waited, where disappointment had turned to something beautiful, where two souls who had lived full lives found each other, and began again.